This is going to be a seated hip internal rotation stretch to improve hip internal rotation mobility and to improve joint space in your hip joint. So you're going to find a seated position where your feet can be relatively free. You're gonna also need a PVC pipe. From here, we're gonna make sure your sit bones are heavy on the box or on the chair. Then from there, you're going to use the PVC pipe to pull yourself into hip internal rotation. That is going to look kind of complicated. So you're gonna put it on the outside of your knee. If you're doing right, that's what I'm doing. You're gonna then wrap the other end on the inside of your foot, kind of make sure your foot grabs a hold there. And now I'm gonna use my hands to pull my thigh into hip internal rotation. So you should see this winding happening here at my thigh bone. That is going to be hip internal rotation. If you have lots, you're gonna come out here like me. If you don't have as much, you're gonna come out to whatever you can where you feel a stretch. We are going to make sure that as we do that, we are not hiking away and coming out of it, because that would be involving our spine, which is no longer just a hip internal rotation stretch. So make sure your hip is nice and sturdy on the table or on the chair that you're on, and then pull yourself into a nice hip internal rotation stretch. You want to feel this deep outside part of your hip feeling like it's stretching. We want to avoid any groin pinching or closing angle symptoms. If you feel that, play around with maybe tucking your pelvis a little bit, maybe leaning back a little bit so you're out of hip flexion. And if you can't find a position that feels very good, you're going to want to find a different position to work on hip internal rotation. This is probably not the one for you. Once you've sat in this stretch for a good couple of minutes, we are then going to add the strength part of the stretch, which is going to be PAILs rails. So PAILs is going to be contracting what you were just stretching. So instead of moving into internal rotation, we're first starting to move into external rotation. That is this motion. So the I in PAILs and rails stands for isometrics, which means there's no movement. So your hands have to withhold the resistance that your leg is going to be giving you. I want you to think about trying to pull yourself out of the stretch. So really driving that leg into external rotation, ramping up to the desired intensity and holding. You should feel a lot of leg work here as you're doing that. Once you have held that for 20 to 30 seconds or the prescribed amount of time, you're gonna ramp that contraction down. Your sit bone is still heavy in the chair, and then you're going to perform rails. Rails is going to be the lateral front hip here, pulling you into a deeper stretch. So that is this motion. Again, we are avoiding hiking. We are just thinking about winding that thigh into internal rotation. You might get some cramping, try to work through it. Work up to your desired intensity, hold for 20 to 30 seconds, and then ramp back down. And that is going to be one set of PAILs rails. Obviously, to start, you're only probably going to be doing one set, but you may progress to multiple sets as you've been doing this for a while. Always follow your program and what's prescribed.